Imagine this for a moment. You're plunged into total, absolute darkness. The air is thick with the smell of salt and metal. Water is everywhere, rising fast. The floor under you lurches violently, and then it's gone. You're tumbling, disoriented, as the world turns upside down. This isn't a nightmare. This was the reality for Harrison Okene on May 26, 2013. He was a cook aboard the JS Confor, a tugboat working off the coast of Nigeria. In the early hours of the morning, a massive rogue wave struck the vessel, capsizing it in an instant. The boat sank like a stone, plummeting 100 feet to the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean. Of the 12 crew members on board, 11 died almost instantly. But Harrison, by some miracle, was still alive. He had been in the bathroom when the wave hit. As the ship filled with water, he was swept through the corridors, scrambling in the pitch black. He fought against the current, blindly feeling his way, until he found a small engineer's office. The water had stopped rising, leaving a tiny pocket of air just 4 feet high. He was trapped, alone, at the bottom of the ocean. Think about the sheer terror of that situation. It's a claustrophobe's worst nightmare multiplied by 1,000. He was in complete darkness. The only light he'd ever see again, he thought, was the one in his memory. The water around him was freezing, gradually sucking the warmth from his body. He was wearing nothing but his boxer shorts. He had no food, no fresh water to drink. The air he was breathing was getting stale, the oxygen slowly depleting with every breath he took. And he wasn't entirely alone. He could hear them, the sounds of the ocean's inhabitants. Fish, crabs, and even sharks, drawn by the scent of the disaster, were swimming just outside his tiny sanctuary. He could hear them bumping against the walls, their ghostly shapes moving in the water just inches away from him. It was a constant, terrifying reminder of where he was. Hours turned into a day, then 2. He was losing all sense of time. The cold was unbearable, and he began shivering uncontrollably. The salty water was agonizing on his skin, peeling it raw. Desperate for anything to combat the cold, he managed to find a mattress and some panels, which he used to build a small platform to lift himself out of the water. This small act of defiance against his fate was a testament to his will to survive. He prayed constantly. He thought about his family, his wife. He made promises to God, bargaining for just one more chance. But hope was a flicker in an overwhelming storm of despair. After all, who would ever think to look for a survivor in a sunken ship at the bottom of the sea? Meanwhile, on the surface, a rescue operation was underway. A team of saturation divers was sent down by the Dutch company DCN Diving. Their mission was grim: to recover the bodies of the deceased crew. It was a dangerous and somber task. They had no reason to believe anyone could have survived the sinking. The pressure at the depth alone is crushing, about 4 times the pressure we experience at sea level. The human body simply isn't built to withstand it. For 60 long hours, Harrison waited in his dark, watery tomb. The sounds of the sea creatures became his only companions. He was hallucinating from the lack of oxygen and the sheer psychological trauma. He was beginning to accept his fate. He was going to die down there. Then he heard something new, a different sound, a metallic clanking, a tapping. At first, he thought he was imagining it, but it grew louder, more distinct. It was the sound of the divers. They were here. But were they here for him? Or were they just here for the dead? He was weak, his voice barely a whisper. He knew he had one chance. He found a small hammer and started banging on the wall of his chamber. Tap, 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 a desperate signal from the deep. One of the divers, Nico van Heerden, was swimming through the murky wreckage. He and his team had already recovered 4 bodies. They were moving through the ship, their headlamps cutting through the gloom. They entered a cabin and saw a hand floating in the water. Assuming it belonged to another victim, the diver reached out to grab it, part of the standard recovery procedure. But then, the unthinkable happened. The hand grabbed back. Imagine the shock for that diver. In the cold, silent depths, the hand from a body he presumed was dead suddenly grips his own. For a split second, He thought it might be a sea creature, or just a reflex from the corpse. But then the hand squeezed tighter. He shone his light, and there in the air pocket was Harrison Okene. He was alive. The diver's voice crackled over the comms, filled with disbelief. There's a survivor. He's alive. The news sent shockwaves through the entire rescue team on the surface. It was impossible. It was a miracle. But getting Harrison out was not simple. He had been breathing air at a much higher pressure for nearly 3 days. If they brought him to the surface too quickly, the dissolved nitrogen in his blood would form bubbles, causing a fatal condition known as the bends. It would be like shaking a soda can and then opening it. His survival so far was a miracle, but the next few hours were just as perilous. The dive team had to act fast and with extreme precision. They fitted him with a diving helmet, supplying him with a proper breathing mix. They had to reassure him, keep him calm, as they guided him out of his metal coffin and into a diving bell. The journey to the surface was agonizingly slow. He had to spend another 2.5 days inside a decompression chamber, his body slowly and carefully readjusting to normal atmospheric pressure. When he finally emerged, blinking in the bright sunlight he thought he'd never see again, he learned the full extent of the tragedy. He was the sole survivor. The weight of that knowledge, the survivor's guilt, was immense. But he was alive. Harrison Okene had survived for 60 hours, 100 feet beneath the waves, in what is now considered one of the most incredible survival stories of all time. His story is a powerful reminder of the resilience of the human spirit, the will to live against all odds, and the thin line between life and death. It shows that even in the deepest, darkest places, a flicker of hope can refuse to be extinguished. Thank you for watching this incredible story. If you found it as amazing as we did, please hit that like button and subscribe for more tales of survival and human endurance. We'll see you in the next one.